What's going on, everyone? Welcome on into a live Cleveland Browns report. Matthew Peterson here hanging out with you guys right before the NFL schedule release tomorrow, Wednesday. But the Browns already know their Week 1 opponent, the Dallas Cowboys, which I'm really excited for because when Michael Strahan, and I meant to say this in my video yesterday breaking down the news of Browns-Cowboys in Cleveland Week 1, but when Michael Strahan announced to Tom Brady and whatever show he was on for Fox that, hey, your first game as a broadcaster will be in Cleveland between the Browns and the Cowboys, he actually didn't say anything about the Browns or the Cleveland Browns. He just talked about your first game will be covering America's team, the Dallas Cowboys. Didn't really even cross his mind to maybe say, oh, and by the way, the other team they're playing, it's this guy with, a team up in Northeast Ohio, the Browns or something they're called. Didn't even register. So you know what? Fine by me. Focus on the Cowboys. Talk about the Cowboys. All eyes on the Cowboys. Don't consider the Browns. Don't look at the Browns. Pay no attention to the Cleveland Browns because a lot of teams have done that. A lot of teams did that last year. Cincinnati Bengals Week 1. 49ers in Week 5. Ravens after the second half. How'd that work out? Not so good. We got some Super Chats rolling in. Shout out your city as we let our audience build up, though. Jeremy Stallman, ladies and gentlemen, is one of one. A $10 Super Chat to open up the show. I love this opening day spot for the Dogs. We will show who the real boys are. Let's go Browns. I mean, the Dallas Cowboys last year showed us that they can beat up, and at a very high rate too, bad teams. They should be playing the New York Giants Week 1. That's where they thrive. When they were tossed into the fire last year and they had to play a highly physical and competitive team, there was a big brown round skin mark on the rear end. So I'm very pumped for the Browns and Cowboys to be playing Week 1. And then another Super Chat from Jeremy Stallman. $50 Super Chat from Mr. Stallman. Shout out to you, Jeremy. Everyone spam Jeremy in the chat. Petey, let's open with run back with everyone that's in the chat. Let's rock out. I thought I was going to say something different with this live chat. And let's go, Browns. Kick Cowboy ass. If you got Browns over the Cowboys Week 1, start spamming CLE in the chat. I'm excited because last year everyone thought there's no way the Browns can beat Burrow and the Bengals. We don't care about Kevin Stefanski's record against Cincinnati. Blah, 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 blah. What happened? It was a shit pumping, guys, and it's going to happen again. And I can't wait because I like to think of sporting events as what's going to be the storyline. And whatever that bigger storyline is, that's the result. I'm not batting 1,000 with that approach, but it works a lot of the time. What's going to be the bigger storyline? The Dallas Cowboys are on a path to win the Super Bowl, or the Dallas Cowboys lost to the Cleveland Browns, and that's what Screamin' A and Skip Bayless are going to talk about all next week. I think the latter. They're not going to give the Browns any credit, by the way. If the Cowboys lose, it'll be because the Cowboys were themselves. Another $80 Super Chat. Let's go! Slow but sure, 504. Can I get a F Pit in the chat? Them
Pittsburgh!
Cowgirls don't have a chance. F the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's go. Let's go, slow but sure. Spam F Pit in the chat. Let's have ourselves a day.
Let's go, Petey. The Browns fans are getting active. I love it.
Should I share some personal news? Because it's related to the Super Chat here.
I mean, I feel like you could.
I've kind of opened the door now, so
I feel like you have to. The jar's open.
So I don't love sharing my personal life, through social media and whatnot. That's just never been my cup of tea. But I got engaged over the weekend. Producer Trace was there.
Woo!
The after party, the soiree. It was a blast. Went perfect. Great time. I'm bringing this up now after this Super Chat from Slow But Sure because my future in-laws, but my girlfriend, I can't say it anymore, fiance's grandparents, they're from Pittsburgh. They're Steelers fans. And they know what I do for a living, but they're, a bit older and they're not watching YouTube videos on the daily. But I always feel, I wouldn't say bad, but I always just hope every time I get F pits going in the chat, they happen to not watch this one video. because I would feel a little bit bad because they're so nice and they're not mean Steelers fans or anything. They're not like
they just happen to be Steelers.
They happen to be Steelers fans. They don't care about their rivalry really. Yeah. But I always feel a little bit bad when they're like, "We love watching your Browns videos."
Yeah.
And I'm like, I sure hope you're not for the F-Pit ones. But I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. So it was an awesome weekend. Quick funny story. Do you want one funny story?
Yes.
So we live in Dallas, Texas. That's where Chat Sports is located. Not from Dallas, but moved to Dallas for the job. And neither one of my fiance or myself are outdoorsy nature people. Despite being a proud Eagle Scout, I'm not a big outdoorsy person. So neither one of us wanted like a park engagement. We're just not that couple.
That makes sense.
You know what I mean? So I wanted to do an indoor spot. Plus, it's rained a lot in Dallas.
Yeah.
Did not want to risk it raining.
Well, it was bad weather this weekend.
On Sunday, it rained all day.
Yeah.
So I barely missed it. So we went to the top of Reunion Tower, which is, if you ever look at the Dallas skyline, it's the building with like the sphere at the very top. And miscommunication, Larry David style. I thought it would be, when I reserved it, private. More private than it was. We come up the elevator.
And it's the general...
It's the general public everywhere. So that was a surprise. And I was like, on one knee, and as I'm asking afterwards, like before I even get up, she's like, why are there so many people here? And I go, you and me both are wondering that same question. Okay, so... I appreciate it. At some point, I'll have to get my fiance Shaylin on the show. She asks frequently to come on. So I think a preseason game. I said that last year, and then I forgot. Oh, I didn't see that. Thank you very much. Thank you, guys. Jeremy Stallman! Jeremy, here's the funny thing. Jeremy is in Dallas. I hope you don't mind me sharing, Jeremy, next weekend. And he emailed me last week saying, can we get together?
No way.
And I was like, can I give you a response later? Because I was still in the thick of planning, not the engagement party anymore, but like if her family was going to be here the next weekend.
Yeah.
So I'm like, let me get it back to you after this weekend.
Yeah.
So now, Jeremy, I can give you a much more thorough response. I'll email you back later. Jeremy. What was she thinking? LOL. Well, congratulations, but F-Pit. Here's to Bachelor Party. Awesome job, Petey. We got to get into Brown stuff because I'm going to have no viewership. But, yeah, we should probably start a live poll of where should Petey's Bachelor Party be. I'm a big advocate and fan of New Orleans. I want some level of a casino access. There is a casino in New Orleans.
Scottsdale's also an option.
Yes. I'm not a big, club person at all. I think my personality at this point probably come through with that. So I don't need to go to a city where it's like all there is to do is just go to the clubs. New Orleans, I love Bourbon Street, and I would go to a Pelicans game. I want to go to some sporting event. Love the food. So that's leading the pack right now. Of course, there's Vegas. I've never been to Vegas, though, but hard to say no to Vegas. So I've got some time.
Could do a cruise.
Could do a cruise. I think it's the cruises. They're so fun that if it's not a long cruise, the moment you get on, you're already sad because you're getting off soon.
Dang.
It's like I'm already pre-sad.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to get off.
I totally feel that.
I love cruises.
Totally feel that.
I grew up in a Disney Cruise Line family. That was the
Me
Peterson
too.
house. Oh, I love Disney Cruise
Oh,
Lines.
they were so much fun.
Thank you guys for all of your really kind words. I really, really do appreciate it. And I know that's just an easy thing to say, but let me give you a prime example of what I want to say next. We have a men's basketball league that Chat Sports has a team in, play every Monday night. And last night, a guy came up to our Giants host, Marshall Green, who maybe some of you longer viewers kind of remember, and said, "You're the Giants guy from Chat Sports. I watch your show." And that was super cool for Marsh, running into a viewer out in the open, in the wild. And when Marshall came into the office today and told us about it, I was like, "Oh, do you recognize him from the comment section?" And he's like, "No, not really." And it just kind of goes to show, I know to maybe you guys it doesn't seem genuine, but, I know Ghostface. I know Levi Mayfield. So if I were to bump into someone that's a regular in the chat, I'm probably going to be like an animal just as, excited as you are. You know, and they love to say, animals are more afraid of you than you are of them. That's how I'll be holy shit. To me, you're, my superstar. Scott Zappa.
It's fun to put a face.
Yeah.
It's also fun to put a face and a voice to the name. Because usually we only see him in the YouTube comment section.
We got another super chat rolling in. Jacob Kistner, channel legends equal auto invite to Bachelor Party, right? I've got an issue with trimming the Bachelor Party list. Got a lot of close friends from high school, from college, brother-in-law, cousin, and no one likes a Bachelor Party where there's so many people that it ends up just splitting into the groups of people that already know it. And I even get to work. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying like, I have friends, so I don't want a 20-person Bachelor Party. That would be tough. So Kistner, I'm not going to even get your hopes up. I don't think this is going to happen. But you know what? If you show up, I can't say go away. So maybe that's the workaround. Yeah, I don't know if you'll be in the group message though. That's the fun one. All right, we got to get to some Browns content before this just becomes a podcast about myself. Name a random Browns player. I love playing this game. I like to do it in the off season because it's just a good time period where there's not a whole lot of meat on the bone. And naming a random player for your team is just a classic game that all sports fans love to play. So, name a random Browns player. Jeremy Stallman getting the party started. Vincent, thank you guys. Scott, appreciate you. Levi, thank you. Everyone that said really kind things in the chat, I really, really appreciate it. Slowbone. So, name a random Browns player in the chat right now. Let me go with Miles Austin. That's one of my always favorite go-tos. People forgot he played for the Browns. Like, you think of him as a Dallas Cowboy. It was him and Dez Bryant. Really good 1-2 punch. He played in Cleveland. That happened. Dwayne Bowe. There's some good ones out there. Christopher Stofira with a $2 super chat. Let's go. Levi, I was thinking of Larry Ogunjobi, but I wanted to go back further in time. But that's a good one as well. Christopher, also Larry Ogunjobi is one team away from playing for all AFC North teams. Dogs are going to kick cow pies. Can't wait. That makes two of us, Christopher. I am stoked as well. Raheem Mostert, Kellen Winslow, Duke Johnson just retired. We have a newish guy. Not new anymore. It's Colin. He's not with us today, though. And last week I was like, I don't know what to talk about for today's show. And he starts, like, looking up topics for me. I was like, oh, that's so cute of you. Thank you for doing my job. And he's like, Duke Johnson retired. And I'm like, yes, that's what's going to get the clicks. Duke Johnson's retirement, despite not playing for the Browns the last 4 or 5 years. That's what the people in Northeast Ohio want to hear about today. All right. Coming up on today's show, we're going to get to, what's that? I know. Latest news and rumors. And then I want to run through a bit of an OTAs preview. It gets started, organized team activities, fun trivia for you. Not organized or off-season or optional team. People always think it's optional or off-season. No. That starts in a week. So I want to run through 5 guys just to have on your radar that I think need to have a strong showing at these, 10 voluntary practices? Now, sometimes the teams cancel 1 or 2 towards the end if they like what they saw earlier. And then, of course, our mailbag. So, hashtag Browns or Super Chat. We've already gotten a handful of Super Chats. We're $6 away from $200 in Super Chats. So, thank you guys for supporting the show. It really, really means a ton. Jeremy Stallman, Christopher, Slow But Sure. You guys are incredible human beings. Thank you. Benjamin Watson, that's a good one. Peyton Hillis, good one as well. Tim Couch, not
Arkansas legend. Peyton Hillis.
I do love when I put my Amari Cooper jersey on. And you want to know how you can gauge someone's age? If someone goes, why do you have a Baker Mayfield jersey? And then person B goes, why do you have a Tim Couch jersey on? And it's like, so I know which one of you is 25 and which one is 35. All right, are we ready to jump into a live Cleveland Browns report? We got 12 likes. I would really, really appreciate it. If you have not liked the video yet, please go ahead and do so. It just boosts the stream, the live show, to more Browns fans, so the channel can get bigger and whatnot. So hit that like button if you have not already, and let's dive into a live edition of the Cleveland Browns report. Well, coming up on today's show, at least what I originally planned for, is PFF's most underrated player for the Cleveland Browns. Bleacher Report came out with 3 realistic free agent targets. But right before we started our live show today, which we are filming today's episode inside of our live Cleveland Browns report, the Browns made a handful of roster moves. So let's break down those roster moves super duper quickly here. As Mary Kay Cabot reported, the Browns claimed Kellen Diesch and via waivers and signed wide receiver Jalen Camp, and then they waived kicker Luke Harvchik. Remember, they had Cade York and, of course, the better D-Hop, so they already had 3 kickers. They didn't need all 3. So let's give some background here on both of these players. We'll start with Camp. He was a draft pick out of Georgia Tech by the Jags in the 6th round back in 2021. He appeared in 5 games last year, started one of them, all actually in Houston with the Texans. And then last year, he bounced around between the Steelers and Panthers practice squad. Meanwhile, Kellen Diesch, he was a UDFA out of Arizona State on the offensive line, and he was originally with Miami as a UDFA in 2022. And then last year, he was on the Bears and Steelers practice squad. So those are the 2 roster additions that were made. And then to make some room, we've got a kicker when you don't really need 3 kickers, let alone 2 most times, being waived to open up some roster spots. So my analysis of this is these are just camp bodies, right? These are just guys that are going to come in and compete. And hey, a lot of times we give these players like 30 to 45 seconds of our time. And most of the time, that's really all they need because they are so, rotated in and out throughout the offseason. But every once in a while, you get yourself an Austin Watkins. Remember, he was like the last guy added before training camp last year. And then he was like the star of training camp for the Browns. So that was super fun. So, it's worth memorizing these names at least for a few days or weeks before inevitably these guys get rotated in and out and you forget all about them. Now, let's talk about PFF's most underrated player. And that is Maurice Hurst. So he comes off a really strong season for the Browns where he had career best in games played, tackles for loss, sacks, pass breakups, interceptions, and snaps since his second season in the league back in 2019 with the Oakland Raiders. Now, he re-signed with the Browns, if you've been living under a rock, on a 1-year, $3.2 million contract, which, when you think about the Browns' 3 free agent defensive tackles, Jordan Elliott, Shelby Harris, and Maurice Hurst, I thought Maurice Hurst was the best of all 3 of those guys last year. And he ends up being the lowest paid out of all 3 of those guys in free agency. I could not agree more, though, with what Pro Football Focus is saying here about Maurice Hurst being the most underrated player on this Browns team. Is he someone that other fan bases know and fear when they go up against the Browns? Probably not. Is he someone that after the game is over, they go, who the hell is that guy rubbing his belly all game long? Probably, because he did a whole lot last year. 22 tackles, 1.5 sacks, 4 tackles for loss. And keep in mind, he did all of this in just 13 games before unfortunately suffering a season-ending pec injury. Now, here's what PFF had to say on Maurice Hurst. Although his season was cut short due to an injury, Maurice Hurst was playing the best football of his career in his 6th NFL campaign in 2023. In fact, after the first 8 weeks of the season, Hurst ranked 7th among interior defenders in PFF overall grade. Admittedly, he was used as a role player in Jim Schwartz's defense, but he was very efficient in that reduced role. So here are the PFF grades, by the way, for Maurice Hurst from 2023. Overall grade of 81. That ranked 13th out of 130 qualifying defensive tackles. Stout against the run. Good pass rush upside as well. Felt like he was always getting his big paws up in the air and batting passes down. Him and Shelby Harris were so good at that last year. So I'm very excited for Maurice Hurst to come back. Another thing about him that I don't think you can just illustrate in a YouTube video is the personality. The guy's funny. The locker room loves him. And you need those guys. You need those cultures, tone setters in a locker room. And Maurice Hurst, in my eyes, is one of those players. So he ultimately will probably not be someone that rises the Cleveland Browns leaderboard and goes down as one of the best Browns defensive players of all time. But I think he's going to be a really solid player for this team. He'll be a key part of that rotation on the defensive line. And most importantly, in a few years, he's going to make one hell of a random Browns player. So name a random Browns player for me down below. The more random, the better. I don't want to see any basic names. I don't want to see Baker. I don't want to see any of that. I want deep cuts. I want Miles Austins of the world. Now, next up on the show, we're going to look at some realistic free agent targets for the Browns. Bleacher Report came out with an article following the draft of, hey, these teams could target these players. And I thought I would share with you guys what the folks at Bleacher Report had to say. But first, I do want to fill everyone in about our sponsor today, which is Prize Picks. That is daily fantasy made easy, where all you've got to do is pick 2 to 6 players and then choose more or less on their projected stats. So as you watch the NBA and the NHL playoffs, and if you're looking to have some extra fun while watching games that the Cavs aren't playing in, say the really exciting series between the Nuggets and the T-Wolves, I mean, I'm going with the more on Nikola Jokic's points, rebounds, and assists combined at 50.5, taking the less on Cat's points at 19.5. And then Obi Toppin and the Pacers, they have just walked all over the Knicks the last 2 games. So I'll take the more on Obi Toppin at 8.5 points. So if you like my selections and you want to ride with me, download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS for a first-time deposit match up to $100. Don't worry, I put all that information for you guys in the comments and description of today's video. But download the app today and use code CLNS for a first-time deposit match up to $100. Now, let's talk about some free agent targets, realistic ones too, although there's not that many big sexy names out in the street anymore. Some really good safeties, and that's kind of about it at this stage. But here were the 3 players that Bleacher Report targeted for Cleveland. Linebacker Kwon Alexander, cornerback Ahkello Witherspoon, and defensive end edge rusher Yannick Ngakoue, who has just lived out of a suitcase, as I like to say, throughout his entire NFL career. But let's kind of go in order here, starting with Alexander. He's hopped around. He was with the Jets last. He was with the Saints before that. He was with the 49ers before that. He's had some good seasons. He's struggled staying on the field, like last year only playing in 9 games, but he can make some impact plays for you. 7 tackles for loss, 6 tackles for loss, 2 interceptions sprinkled in, some pass breakups, and ultimately I think the Browns are likely content with their linebacker room. Keyword is content. Do they love it? I wouldn't if I were them, but also you can only do so much in one offseason. And ultimately, they decided the linebacker position this year is just not going to be a spot that gets a lot of resources allocated to it. They signed Jordan Hicks. They signed Devin Bush. They like to run 2 linebacker sets, an extra safety on the field. So it's going to be a lot of JOK and Hicks with Devin Bush sprinkled in when they get towards the goal line. And I think Jim Schwartz is okay with that. But maybe during OTAs and training camp, they decide we want to bring in an extra body. Ahkello Witherspoon. So he was someone that really struggled staying on the field with the Pittsburgh Steelers for a good stretch of time. But last year with the Rams puts together a 17-game season, and the best one ever, too, like in his career. 52 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 14 pass breakups, and 3 interceptions. So I thought Witherspoon played outstanding last year, and I could see the Browns looking at cornerback and edge rusher as cornerstone pieces where they can feel like they never have enough depth at those spots. So maybe they look at Witherspoon as, hey, a really good player, but more importantly, a guy that we could just use for depth at the cornerback position because we've got our top 3 in Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome, Martin Emerson. But if one of those guys goes down, what's the confidence level in a Khalifa Ilhase or a Cam Mitchell, a Vincent Gray? Maybe not as high as Witherspoon. Now, does Witherspoon want to come to a spot where he'll be a backup? That might take some convincing, but at this point of free agency, he may not have a lot of options. As for the defensive line for Yannick Ngakoue, a lot of what I said for Witherspoon goes for Ngakoue, where we know Andrew Berry likes to target cornerstone pieces, right? He signed Okoronkwo last year in free agency, and then he trades for Zadarius Smith. So, and that was, by the way, right after drafting Isaiah McGuire. So the guy added 3 edge rushers last year in like a 6-week span, give or take. So maybe he looks at Yannick Ngakoue as a really good player that has no business being a free agent still, and if his price drops, they feel like more the merrier when it comes to edge rushers. Last year, He had 4 sacks for Chicago. He broke his ankle towards the end of the year after playing 13 games, but there's videos out of him running around, and ankle looks fine to me, so I think he's ready to play again. But maybe Andrew Berry feels like, hey, we can never have enough good corners and edge rushers, and if there's quality guys still on the street, well, we're just doing a bad job by not at least looking at them. So I think if the Browns were to make another signing, at least a big-ish one, it would be at a cornerstone position where the Browns feel like, let's lock and load at those spots because we don't want to go through our top guys and not have good reserves at those positions. Now, what position do you think the Browns should add to? Get in the comment section below and let me know. For me, I would say corner actually may be one that grows on me just because Denzel Ward and Greg Newsome do have a pattern of missing time. So the last thing you want to see happen is you're down your top 2 corners and the backups aren't living up to the expectations and you find yourself in a jam. So cornerback is definitely a good spot to lock and load at and have plenty of depth at. Now, we'll bring producer Trace on to pick a card to wrap up the show. Trace, which card do you want to go with?
I'm going to roll with the 7 of diamonds.
7 of diamonds. Give me the 3 of clubs.
How you feeling? Lucky?
No. Some guy always comments a different card, but it's not this one. 8 of clubs.
Damn.
8 of clubs. All right. That will do it for us on today's episode. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe if you're not already. That way you can come hang out with us tomorrow, or maybe when you're watching this today, when the NFL schedule is released, and we'll go game by game for the Cleveland Browns. What position should the Brownies add to? What do you guys think? Well, actually, can we do the name a random Brown? I love that one. Name a random player.
Let's do it. Name a random Brown.
All right. No one got the card right, it looks like. Josh, by the way, changing your profile picture up on me. Think I would notice?
We got it.
Cat in there. Conan the Elf, Dave Logan. Cool Guy says linebacker, actually. And Jeremy says running back.
Suggs.
Jeremy, the thing with running back is just we don't know where Nick Chubb is at. And if Nick Chubb is going to be back sooner rather than later, then you don't need a running back. But you're absolutely right that if Nick Chubb's not back sooner rather than later, I don't have a ton of confidence in Jerome Ford and Deontay Foreman. Like, I have confidence in them not to screw it up if it's like 2, 3, maybe 4 games. But if it's 6, 7, 8 games, no. I would like to see an addition made at the running back position. Austin Watkins, Rashard Higgins.
Rodney Poole.
Devin Bush Sr., Clay Matthews, the OG. Jackson Green with the question. Appreciate you. Cool Guy, get the hashtag Browns. I think that's why you just deleted it. So toss it back in there with hashtag Browns. All right. Should we run through our 5 players with the most approved at OTAs?
I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, I like making these types of videos. You know, it's a news and rumors channel, so when there's news or there's rumors, we're obviously going to prioritize that. But it is fun to, you know, get in the weeds when it comes to X's and O's with you all here on the channel. All right, let's jump into some OTAs, preview, players to watch for, all that good stuff. On today's episode, we're going to run through 5 players with the most approved at the Cleveland. Let's just start all over. Didn't like the beginning at all. You guys get to see a live Cleveland Browns report. That means you get to see me screw up. So take two. I try to say 2 things at once, and that's usually when I go downhill. All right, here we go. Coming up on today's show, I'm going to share with you guys 5 players that have the most approved at Cleveland Browns OTAs, which will get started sometime early next week. We'll go through the whole schedule with you in just a moment. But OTAs are a funny thing because they're voluntary, and some of the big J's of the world get super worked up when star players do not report. And I'm old enough to remember last year when people got really upset Myles Garrett was not there, and then he won Defensive Player of the Year. So they're important, but at the same time, they are not the end-all, be-all. But here is the Browns OTA schedule. They've got organized team activity, voluntary practices, May 21st to the 23rd, 28th to the 30th, and then June 3rd to the 6th, with mandatory minicamp coming June 11th to the 13th. So here are 5 players that I think have the most to prove at OTAs to make sure they have their roster spot locked down or their spot on the depth chart. And we'll start with quarterback Tyler Huntley, because right now Tyler Huntley is right in the middle of a 4-way-ish quarterback competition. Like after Deshaun Watson, you've got Jameis Winston, Tyler Huntley, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and Jacob Sherman, who was the UDFA they signed following rookie minicamp to their roster. And Winston, with the guaranteed money, he's pretty well established as this team's backup. But so was Josh Dobbs last year, and we saw how that changed when he got traded. But Huntley has very little guaranteed money, so he is someone the Browns could easily move on from and it not cost him a whole lot, which means I think the real focus should be for him competing with Dorian Thompson-Robinson to earn that third quarterback spot on the roster, because I think the Browns are going to take 3 quarterbacks onto their active 53-man roster. I don't think they're going to do the 2 quarterbacks and put one on the practice squad game. I think they want a 3-quarterback room, which means I think it's between Huntley and DTR to earn that third spot. And the Browns drafted DTR, so he may get the benefit of the doubt. Ty may go to him if it comes down to it. So it's up to Huntley to make sure it does not come down to a tie. Now, which quarterback do you think gets moved on or cut? Like, remove Jacob Sherman from the conversation because that's a really easy answer. I guess you can go with that one if you want. But between DTR and Huntley and maybe Jameis, seems very unlikely. But if I was standing here a year ago and said Josh Dobbs is going to get traded, you would all laugh at me in the comment section. So it's the NFL. Crazy stuff does happen. Second guy to watch for at OTAs, let's go with wide receiver Cedric Tillman. He's not on the hot seat. Like, he is not there trying to earn his roster spot. Of course, everyone is in theory, but when you're a third-round draft pick, you get a bit of a longer leash than other players. But Cedric Tillman is on this because last year the production, I don't think was there or where it was where the Browns were hoping it would be after Donovan Peoples-Jones got traded. I mean, remember, in that press conference, they name-dropped Cedric Tillman as someone who will have a larger role with DPJ gone. And Tillman did not really make the most of that, but he's still really young. It was his rookie season. I think it's way too early and premature to define a player because of just what they did in their rookie year. But I think he's on this list because he needs to earn his spot on the depth chart, right? You've got your top 3 wideouts, Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, Elijah Moore. And then after that, you've got a good battle going between Cedric Tillman, David Bell. Michael Woods comes back. Remember, he unfortunately popped his Achilles last year training. Rookie Jamari Thrash, Jalen Darden, James Prochet, some UDFAs being added. Like, it is open season after the top 3 wide receivers. I would say Tillman's the current leader in the clubhouse, but that's mostly just because of where he was drafted. So he needs to quiet the wide receiver seekers in the fan base. There were a lot of people that wanted the Browns to go out and get a wide receiver in round 2 of the draft. I remember telling you guys, don't put your eggs in that basket because I think the Browns are a lot more content with their wide receiver room than the average fan would believe. But it's up to Cedric Tillman to make sure that the Browns do not regret maybe what they did last year. If you go back to 2023, the Browns passed on DeAndre Hopkins. And I wonder if Andrew Berry could do it all over again if he would go down that same path. And I remember once in a press conference, Andrew Berry shared that he keeps like a diary, a journal of some of the mistakes and successes he's had as a GM. And he likes to look at that to not make the same mistake twice. So I wonder if there's a good wide receiver on the free agency market this summer. Andrew Berry decides, I want to bring him in because last year I put a lot of faith in DPJ and Tillman and Bell, and it didn't work out as well as I would have hoped. And I'm not going to make the same mistake twice. Whereas if Tillman has an awesome showing in OTAs and minicamp, if that thought creeps through Berry's mind, he'll go, no, I do like what I saw at Tillman in the month of May and June. Third guy that has the most to prove at OTAs, Siaka Ika, the fellow third-round pick from last year along with Cedric Tillman. Ika is on this list for a little bit of a different reason than Tillman. Ika's on this list because I think he needs to actually earn his roster spot, right? The production level between Ika and Tillman was not jarringly different last year. Tillman got way more opportunities. He played like maybe, 500 more snaps, somewhere in that ballpark, than Siaka Ika did last year. Maybe not 500, but a lot more snaps. whereas Ika was a healthy scratch up until the final few weeks of the season. But the wide receiver room is not nearly as jam-packed and full as the interior defensive line is. Because all of a sudden, Siaka Ika is battling with another young player, rookie Michael Hall, for a draft pick. They also drafted Jawan Briggs in the 7th round from Cincinnati, competing with him. They signed Quentin Jefferson in free agency. They re-signed Shelby Harris and Maurice Hurst. There are a lot of players competing for only 4 spots last year. That's how many interior defensive linemen the Browns took. Maybe 5. But if no one gets injured, you can already identify who the odd man out is, right? You got Dalvin Tomlinson, Shelby Harris, Quentin Jefferson, Maurice Hurst, Mike Hall. Those 5 guys, I think, are making the roster, which means Ika really has to push for a roster spot. I think he's a bubble player. I think Siaka Ika is a bubble player, and unless injuries pop up, it'll be on him to earn a roster spot rather than just feel like he has one gift wrapped for him. So definitely keep an eye on him during OTAs, although this is not the best time to evaluate defensive linemen. There's no contact really, right? These aren't like hardcore practices, so it's a little bit unfair, but still, he has to at least come in and show that he's still in good shape and didn't just spend the entire offseason eating hot dogs. 4th player to watch for, I'm going to go with linebacker Devin Bush. I know I've been very critical of Bush this offseason, and I probably need to tone it down a little bit. So, Devin, if you're watching, I'm sorry. I was a big fan of your game coming out of Michigan. I thought, well, now I'm just doing an apology letter to Devin Bush. But anyway, the reason why I've got Devin Bush on this list is because the former 10th overall pick by the Pittsburgh Steelers has not lived up to the billing, of course. The Steelers let him go after his 4 years of his rookie contract were up last year in Seattle. He only started, I think, 3 games, appeared in 13, didn't make a whole lot of impact. But I think Bush is on this list because he needs to fend off rookie linebacker Nathaniel Buki Watson for that starting 3rd linebacker spot. Now, in all reality, we'll probably see a lot of just 2 linebacker sets. But still, Bush does not have a whole lot of guaranteed money attached to his contract. So if he does not have a good OTAs and minicamp and training camp, the Browns can move on from him pretty scot-free and insert a rookie linebacker in Watson, who, if Watson impressed all OTAs and minicamp long, that'll make that decision a whole lot easier for Andrew Berry and the Browns. Now, before we get on to the next player to watch for, off-the-wall random question for you all. First Browns jersey you ever got? I know it has nothing to do with OTAs at all, but it is fun to see everyone's first Browns jersey. For me, Jim Brown. So let me know the first Browns jersey you ever got down below. 5th and final player at the most improved at OTAs. I'm going to go with 2nd-year cornerback Cameron Mitchell out of Northwestern. 5th-round pick last year. He played pretty well, I felt like, at times, although if you caught that one pass in the Seahawks game for what would have been a pick 6, that would be another win for Cleveland, but I digress. I think Cameron Mitchell finds a spot on this list because the Browns cornerback room, I think, is one of the best rooms on this roster. Denzel Ward, Martin Emerson, Greg Newsome are all 3 players that I think would start on nearly all other 31 NFL teams. Denzel Ward and Martin Emerson, pretty much certain on all 31 other teams. Newsome on majority of those other 31 teams. So why are we talking about Cam Mitchell then? Because I think Cameron Mitchell needs to show and prove to Andrew Berry, listen, you can trust me and the other backup corners that if something happens to Denzel Ward, who has always missed time in his NFL career, unfortunately, or Greg Newsome, who has run into injuries throughout his NFL career, that we can fill in no problem. You don't have to worry. You don't have to stress. You don't have to go to a veteran free agent. Trust your gut. Trust the guys that you drafted, the UDFAs, us youngins, and we can hold down the fort if needed. So Cam Mitchell, I think, needs to show and prove to Andrew Berry that he can do a good job as a backup cornerback and as a starting quarterback if needed. Because if not, Andrew Berry does not mess around when it comes to cornerstone positions. Quarterback. We saw what he did to upgrade at quarterback, traded for Deshaun Watson. Offensive tackle. He picked up Jed Wills' 5th-year option. He extended Jack Conklin. He drafted DeJuan Jones. Cornerback. No one saw the Martin Emerson draft pick coming. They just drafted Greg Newsome the year before. They just drafted Greedy Williams in the 2nd round not long ago. But he loves cornerstone positions. So if he's not confident in the backups at the cornerback spot, don't be surprised if he brings in a veteran. That will do it for us on today's episode, though. We're going to bring on Trizzy Trace to pick a card. Which card do you want to go with, Mr. Gerard?
I'm liking the 7 of clubs.
7 of clubs. I'm going to go with the Queen of Spades.
How you feeling?
Queen of Spades. Get your comments. Your
guess your
predictions in the
cards.
comments. Don't be afraid.
I see 6 of clubs, 9 of diamonds, 6 of clubs, 7 of hearts.
Here we go. Ready? I said Queen of Spades. What'd you say?
7 of clubs.
Yeah, not even close. 4 of clubs. 4 of clubs. I guess kind of close. 4 of clubs. All right. That will do it for us on our show today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you're not subscribed, I invite you to go ahead and do so. Help us continue to grow here at the Cleveland Browns Report. We're knocking on the door of 35,000 subscribers. So join one of the fastest and largest Browns YouTube communities out there. First Browns jersey you ever got. What was the first NFL jersey you ever got? I guess maybe Saints?
Drew Brees.
Drew Brees? That's a good one to get.
Yep. That was my first one.
I like that one. What would be not a random, what would be as I call him, second jersey guy you'd want to get for the Saints right now?
Like a current player?
Current player, but it can't be a big name. I don't want to hear Derek Carr.
Rashid Shaheed.
Oh, that's fucking deep right there.
Or Alontae Taylor.
I like the Alontae Taylor one a lot. That's a
Tennessee
good one.
legend.
Yep. First Browns jersey you ever got. Tim Green says Eddie Johnson. Jessica says Baker Mayfield. Josh says Tim Couch. Scott never got one. Scott, what jersey would you want to get? If you could get one right now, which player would you love to get? Cool Guy got a Nick Chubb. Josh is a jersey addict. He meets every Tuesday in the church basement with other jersey addicts. Josh, may I recommend, I think a Jerry Jeudy jersey would be pretty cool.
That would be dope.
I think that'd be kind of cool. I'm not going to lie.
Mo Hurst would be cool.
Scott's current player. Jersey Dog. Good to see you, man. Bernie Kosar. Good one. Jackson Green. Jarvis Landry. I like that one.
That's a good one. Jackson
Green, by the way, very good at putting questions in the chat. So make sure you put your questions in the chat as well. Just use #Browns, or you can super chat to skip the line.
We're definitely going to need some more questions. So it's a good chance for you to get on the show if you get your questions in. So use #Browns, ask a question, give a hot take, trade idea, somebody you want to sign in free agency, whatever.
Scott wants a Dustin Hopkins jersey. Zadarius Smith would be cool. I'm looking forward to Zadarius Smith faking injuries on the last play of the fourth quarter just to get the crowd kind of amped up and slowed down. That's a specialty of his. Okay. Are we ready to jump into a mailbag in just a little bit? So, #Browns, Okoronkwo. I don't hate. Looking forward to getting him back healthy too, by the way. Okay. Give some shout outs in the meantime, Mr. Trace. I just got to do one quick thing.
Got it. So I see Jessica saying Baker Mayfield. Cool Guys saying get an Okoronkwo jersey. Jackson Green getting a question in. Thank you. Jackson, we see your question multiple times in there, so we'll definitely get you on. Joshua Miller asking a question. Get your if you have like an idea that you want the Browns to go and sign, like what about Justin Simmons, or like go bring back Jarvis Landry or something, or like something fun. Like we can have some fun with this. This is your chance to kind of direct the show. You guys get to kind of pave the way of what we're going to talk about. So it's a fun, interactive segment that we do here at Chat Sports, and we want you guys to get on the show as well. So we know Browns fans are very, very smart, so they're going to bring some heat with the questions.
Yeah.
I see Conan the Elf saying get a David Njoku.
The Chief would be a good one. I like that one. Okay.
Jackson Green says random player Rashard Higgins. It's a good one.
That is a good one. All right, here we go. Are we ready to jump on into a show? Okay. I'm just looking for one thing, but I don't think I'm going to find it. That's okay. Yeah, let's do that. Okay. All right. No big deal. All right, here we go. Sorry, that made for very bad content in radio. Let's jump into a Cleveland Browns mailbag. Welcome on into the Cleveland Browns report. Coming up on today's show, we're going to get to our mailbag as we have questions waiting for us from our live show, which airs every single Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern. So come hang out with us next week if you have some questions you want to ask. But without further ado, let's jump into our first question. It comes in from Levi Mayfield. I think Michael Hall could possibly start this year at times. Your opinion? I would pump the brakes on that. Michael Hall got drafted as early as he did because of his young age and great athletic abilities. He's nearly 300 pounds, and he ran a 4.75 40-yard dash. For reference, like the running back from Notre Dame, Audric Estime, what do you run, like a 4.71 40-yard dash? So not very far off from a running back 40-yard time. But regardless, I think Mike Hall is going to need some work because the inconsistency levels were very real last year at Ohio State. And for the Browns picking at 54, they weren't drafting for any major need, but thinking down the line, a lot of their defensive tackles are older, veteran, one-year contract type guys, expiring deals in the near future. So it was a good time for them to reset at that position with some youth. But I think that was a draft pick for 2025 and beyond. If everyone's healthy for the Browns' interior defensive line, I don't think we're going to see a lot of Michael Hall. And that's not going to concern me, to be honest with you. Maybe he has a great training camp and tells me to shove it, but I'm not buying that stock right now. Levi, I appreciate the question, though. Tyrone, who is your underrated player who you think could make an impact this year? Is Nathaniel Watson make an impact this year? Mine is Nathaniel Watson or Trenton Welch, the tight end. So the 6th-round draft pick from Mississippi State, Nathaniel Watson, or the UDFA tight end from Wyoming, Trenton Welch. Tyrone, I'll give you credit. You're going a lot deeper than I will. I'm not going to go with a 6th-round draft pick, although I think Watson, of all the rookies, probably has the easiest path to a starting role since the competition above him is not as tough as like Mike Hall or Zach Zinter or Jamari Thrash. So underrated player I think can make a big impact this year. I think people have probably forgotten about Cedric Tillman a little too easy. I understand that last year there were probably bigger expectations for the rookie, but I felt like he was still adjusting to the NFL speed, and he still had some really good moments in practices, and I know just practice and training camp and whatnot, even on Sundays as well. But no, I'm not going to act like Cedric Tillman does not exist. So I would go with Cedric Tillman as someone who I think will have a bigger impact than people in May and June are talking about for the upcoming season. Tyrone, thank you for the question. Cool guy called Zone. A year from now, who do you think starts from the Browns from all the rookies drafted this year? I think Zach Zinter will start next year, and that's a weird one to lead off with, but I just feel like the Browns are not going to have Joel Petroni and Wyatt Teller beyond their books for $20+ million cap hits. Now, there's a very good chance both those guys play a really solid 2024 campaign, and the Browns just extend those players and continue rolling with really good guard play and say, sorry, Zinter, you'll have to wait a little bit longer, or we'll find a role for you elsewhere. But I feel like Zinter's got a pretty good path in front of him for 2025, which is crazy to say out loud, actually. But I would go with Zach Zinter. And then Mike Hall, like Quentin Jefferson, Maurice Hurst, they're on one-year contracts. Shelby Harris is on a 2-year deal. Dalvin Tomlinson's under contract next year. But Mike Hall could quickly become one of the top 3 defensive tackles next year. But I still think we're going to see probably Harris if he's still on the team, but him and Tomlinson start. However, I'm going to go with Zach Zinter as someone who I think could start next year. Now, before we get on to the rest of today's show, if you want to go hang out with our friends over at Prize Picks, make sure to go ahead and do so at Chat Sports, because here at Chat Sports, we're going to get you guys a $100 deposit match when you use code CLNS. Now, if you're asking what the heck is Prize Picks, well, it's daily fantasy made easy, where all you've got to do is pick 2 to 6 players and then choose more or less on their projected stats. Now, Prize Picks already has season-long stat projections for 2024. So if you want to get some action on something that's more than just one Sunday and have something to watch all season long, I'm taking the more on Jerry Jeudy's receiving yards. 725 feels criminally low for the role I think he'll have this year. Myles Garrett, I'll take the more on his sacks at 13.75. And then I'll just be a hater and take the less on TJ Watt at 15.25. And you can have one more thing to cry about at the NFL awards meeting. But download the Prize Picks app today and use that code CLNS for a first-time deposit match up to $100. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. Shout out to Prize Picks for supporting us here at the Cleveland Browns Report. Joshua Miller, Greg Newsome, and a 2025 sixth-round draft pick for Marshawn Lattimore. We had a similar question last week about almost identical this trade idea right here. I don't think New Orleans does it. Sure, maybe the Saints look at this as an opportunity to, yes, downgrade player-wise from Lattimore to Newsome, but also upgrade in terms of the cost for the players. Newsome being a lot cheaper than Marshawn Lattimore, and the Saints always finding themselves in sticky cap situations. But ultimately, I don't think New Orleans does this, and I don't think Andrew Berry is looking to trade Greg Newsome. As much as people online try to get it done, I don't think the Browns have any interest internally. So I'm going to say no, because the Saints would never do this, and also I just don't think Andrew Berry wants to deal Greg Newsome. Slim Jim, if you could trade for any player, who would it be? Oh boy. If I'm thinking through the lens of Andrew Berry, I don't think he wants to make any more additions at the wide receiver room. I do think he's a lot more confident in it than maybe some of the fan bases. But if Deebo Samuel was truly available and it wasn't going to cost a whole lot, don't you feel like that is the Zadarius Smith of the wide receiver position for this offseason? Where did the Browns need Zadarius Smith last year? No, I mean, they just signed Okoronkwo. They drafted Isaiah McGuire. They drafted Alex Wright the year before. They've got Myles Garrett. No, but Andrew Berry loves investing in cornerstone pieces. So right now, his cornerstone piece is quarterback, Deshaun Watson. So if Deebo Samuel is truly available, he obviously would bring a skill set that is missing from this wide receiver room. Yards after the catch ability. Amari Cooper's really, really good at a lot of things. He's never been a yak king, okay? Jerry Jeudy's much more of a yak player than Cooper is, and Elijah Moore's got some yak ability himself as well. But Deebo is one of one in that category. So Deebo Samuel, I think, would be maybe the only target the Browns seriously look at. And that's not even like a, hey, I'm hearing thing. Just if I were Andrew Berry or thinking of what Andrew Berry would do, that could be a name that pops up. Lil Beam, next one up on the show. What do you think about possibly signing Zack Cunningham? He had a decent year last year. I also like Kwon Alexander. Cunningham with the Eagles last year. The Philadelphia Eagles linebacker core was atrocious last year, right? They added Shaq Leonard towards the end of the year just to try and bring some reinforcements in. I'm not going to say no to adding any linebacker just because I feel like that is the Browns' probably skinniest, maybe weakest position group at this time. Love JOK, but up until last year, JOK always missed time. Small career, small sample size, but still, smaller frame, you're going to pick up some more bruises along the way. So I would not be opposed to adding a linebacker, whether it's Zack Cunningham or Kwon Alexander. My suspicion is we don't see a linebacker signing probably until training camp. Remember last year when the Browns added Shelby Harris early in training camp? They went through like a week of practices and they're like, all right, we tried it out. Not working. We're signing Shelby Harris now. Maybe the Browns find themselves in the same spot for linebacker, although they've already signed 2 linebackers. Andrew Berry wanted Zack Cunningham. He would have signed him the first time, I think. It's not like Zack Cunningham has a huge price tag to his name. So he passed on him before. There's probably a good reason as to why. Jessica, next one up. Who do you think will be the preseason prince for the Browns like this year? Like Josh Dobbs and Austin Watkins. Jessica asking the hard-hitting question. We had Josh Dobbs in 2022, Austin Watkins in 2023. I got to look at the Browns depth chart because it is important to remember that preseason princes are never starters or anywhere close to being starters in our preseason Prince rankings. Preseason Prince rankings, I'm going to go with just scanning over some of the young guys because I feel like they always got to be young. Kind of excited for Juwan Briggs, defensive tackle out of Cincinnati. That could be a candidate for preseason Prince. Offensive preseason Prince. I've heard some buzz about this Armarion Brown, wide receiver from South Carolina. He was a UDFA. Maybe him. I'd go with those two guys. Lil Beam, should we trade for Dre Greenlaw? I mean, when do you want to have Dre Greenlaw play for you? This year? If the answer is yes, I don't know if he's your guy. Remember, he popped his Achilles going onto the field in the Super Bowl. Maybe he comes back in November. Like, if you just think about the 9-month recovery-ish from an Achilles injury, and 9 months is being generous. A lot of times it's a full year, but if he does have a really fast rehab and recovery, you want to trade for a guy that wouldn't play until the last 5-6 weeks of the season? Maybe that's someone the Browns trade for at the trade deadline if by then they've got a much better idea as to where Greenlaw is at rehab-wise. But the Browns have had so many key players work their tail off this offseason rehabbing. All 3 tackles, Nick Chubb, Deshaun Watson. My guess is they're not looking to add another guy to the trainer's office. Jackson, next one up. Is a Brandon Aiyuk trade possible? No, it's not, and I'll tell you why. The Steelers are going to want more than what Brandon Aiyuk is worth, and for good reason. They don't want to trade Brandon Aiyuk. Brandon Aiyuk just wants the biggest contract from any wide receiver, and San Francisco is a bit hesitant to do that. So because the Steelers don't want to trade Aiyuk, that means they don't have to trade him unless they get an offer they truly cannot refuse. And I don't think we're going to see Andrew Berry, although he did that for Deshaun Watson, do another trade like that where he goes not 3 years without a first-round pick, but 4, maybe even 5 years without a first-round pick. And that's what the 49ers want, first-round picks. And I don't think the Browns are in the business of giving them up. All right, let's bring on Trizzy Trace to wrap up our mailbag today. Trace, pick a card for me, my friend.
I'm going to roll with the 7 of Hearts.
7 of Hearts?
Yep.
I want to go with I'm going to go with 5 of Diamonds.
I like that one.
I don't think we see the 5s very often.
No.
They're in here. I got the whole deck. So 5 of Diamonds. Okay.
Come on.
You ready?
I'm due for one.
What'd you say?
7 of Hearts.
Nah, not even close, dude. 3 of Spades.
Son of a gun.
3 of Spades. I feel the pain. All right. That will do it for us on today's show. Hope you have a good rest of your day and enjoyed our video. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and I'll see you all later. Name a random Browns player. Did anyone get it right? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Aiden Robbins is a good one, Jessica, for our preseason Prince. I like that, actually. Maybe I should have stole that one. Tim Green, any schedule predictions ahead of tomorrow's release? Maybe Chiefs, Browns, Halloween, Thursday, or a game in London. I felt like the latest buzz was the Browns would not be going to London. I don't know where I heard that or the reasoning, but I feel like I remember reading that headline. So, other predictions, Tim? All right, well, we know this much. The Browns are home week 1, and they are very, very, very likely away week 2 because there is a concert at the stadium on Friday. Now, they could play home on Monday night, week 2, but I feel like the Monday night game, the Thursday night, week 2 already got announced. That's Bills-Dolphins.
Yeah.
So, I don't think we'll see the Browns in primetime as soon as week 2, especially because they're going to be America's Game of the Week in week 1. So, we know we think, for good reason, they'll be away week 2.
I could see like a week 5 or 6 prime time for the Browns.
So, if they are away week 2, let me read to you guys their road opponents. Okay, you got the 3 division opponents, which is a very real possibility. Then you got Denver, Jacksonville, Las Vegas, New Orleans, Philly, Commanders.
I kind of like New Orleans, honestly.
They played so many division games early last year. I don't think they'll play, and I don't have good reason to believe this other than just gut feeling. They played all 3 teams in the first 4 weeks. So I'm going to rule out the AFC North. So that leaves us with Washington, Philly. Although isn't Philly, I feel like Philly will definitely be home. No, maybe not. I think Philly and Green Bay will be home for week 2. Okay. They wouldn't go Brazil and then go to the road.
Yeah.
So rule out Philly then. Oh, no. Could be at Philly. It's down the road. Could be Philly.
Could
be New Orleans. Could be Las Vegas. I'm going to go.
Raiders aren't a bad. I feel like Raiders could be it.
Could be Raiders. I feel like they're going to put Raiders and Broncos back to back.
Yeah.
For a West Coast trip.
Yeah.
They're pretty nice like that.
That makes sense.
So if that's when they start their West Coast trip, I'll go Jacksonville week 2.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, just a shot in the dark. Jacksonville week 2. Feels appropriate.
That feels good.
Yeah.
Buddy Bear's in the house.
Buddy Bear is funny. Me and Mitch had a joint interview, stepbrother style, tuxedos. We're interviewing you now. How much do you make before taxes? And Mitch was talking to the applicant about, hey, sometimes on our Raiders show we get a lot of super chats. Do you like to have a good time? Pretty much is what he was asking. And I was like, you get some super chats. Buddy Bear would disagree. Jessica likes Cleveland versus New Orleans week 3 Monday night. Yeah.
Maybe.
Sorry, Trace. I'm trying to think what prime time. I think the Saints will get a Thursday night game.
We'll definitely get
definitely get a Thursday.
Definitely get a Thursday night.
Maybe a Monday night.
We usually get 2 Thursdays and a Monday. I think we'll get 1 and 1.
I don't think you're going to see Saints be scheduled for Sunday Night Football this year.
No, I could see Saints Raiders on a Thursday night.
Yeah.
That feels like a good one.
That's a done deal. Saints Raiders Thursday Night Football. Derek Carr versus the Raiders.
It's in New Orleans too.
That one's going to be a primetime game.
Mm-hmm.
They have so many quarterback revenge games this year. Russell Wilson and the Broncos, Kirk Cousins and the Vikings, Derek Carr and the Raiders. And there's more too, and I just can't remember them right now.
Do the Jets play the Packers?
The Jets do play the Packers,
So
but
Rodgers.
in New York.
Okay.
Aaron Rodgers against the Packers. So we've got a lot of quarterback revenge games. And I'm sure there's one more I forgot about too. All right. If we get some more super chats, we can keep hanging out. We're $6 away from 200. So if someone wants to be, the clutch player of the live stream and get us over 200, that'd be really, really cool. But if not, really appreciate everyone who comes and watches our live show every single week. I know we're in the dog days of the off season, and most Browns fans are like, talk to me in August. But for those of you watching right now, I do want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm not trying to be sappy here, but it is awesome to see those of you that hang out and watch all year long. I mean, the usual suspects in the chat: Jeremy Stallman, cool guy; Jessica, Debbie's here, and Deb as well. We got Lufschutz. Will they be the Cleveland Browns or the Brook Park Browns? I don't understand, by the way, why people believe that because the Browns leave Cleveland potentially, the name Cleveland is dropped. The New York Giants and Jets don't play in New York. They don't even play in the same state as their team. And no one really gets upset about that, right? Is anyone upset that the Buffalo Bills don't play in Buffalo? They play in Orchard Park. I don't think it's that deep. We got to change the city name. If you're from Brook Park, let me ask you this. If you were from Brook Park and you were traveling and someone asked you, where are you from? You'd probably say Cleveland.
That's what most people do, I feel like.
Why couldn't the Browns be called the Cleveland Browns, even if they're not from Cleveland, even though play
the
in
Dallas
Cleveland?
Cowboys play in Arlington.
Yeah. I don't think it's really that deep at all. Now, of course, I think this subject should have different weights of opinions if you are a taxpayer or a season ticket holder. I think if you are one of those two, you are allowed to be a little bit more loud, obnoxious, and passionate than if you are not a season ticket holder and you are not a taxpayer. If you're a season ticket holder, I got bad news. You better believe that when the Browns' new stadium opens up, the seat license, the prices, they're going to go way up. I mean, the Browns got to pay themselves back for Jimmy Haslam spending all this money. So if you don't want them to move because you don't want to pay more in ticket prices, I'm not going to fault you for that. Is that what's best for the team or city? Maybe, maybe not. But the NFL is not a cheap outing every Sunday. It would cost a family of 4, I would say $2,000 to comfortably go to a game.
For real?
I think I would say it would cost $2,000 for a family of 4 to comfortably go to a game. And by comfortably, I mean you're not getting the cheapest tickets.
Yeah, you're getting nice seats.
I'm not even saying 50-yard line. I'm saying the middle of the pack seats, parking, concessions, ballpark 2,000. Maybe like when you're a Panthers fan, you can go to a game for $10 at the end of the year. But week 1 this year, I don't think a family of 4 is getting an NFL stadium without spending at least $1,500. Tim Green. So you got some PSLs. I've got bad news, Tim. I'm terrified for the season ticket holders that they're going to be the true, I would say victims, but the punching bag of paying for a new stadium. Because the thing with like taxpayers is, sure you can get an extra tax added on, but a lot of times you just see taxes be reallocated and you don't notice like, now that pothole wasn't filled because the Browns, there's not like a sign that says like, this road was not fixed because of the new Brown Stadium. So it's just not in your face. You don't notice it as much. It's a lot more in your face as a season ticket holder when you inevitably get the email from the team saying, and by the way, after a very long message about how much we love our season ticket holders, we will be increasing season ticket prices by 8%. And it's like, F you. You can't do that. But they say they can because we're sheep. We're sheep to the NFL. They can schedule the NFL a game anytime, anywhere.
And we'll watch.
We wake up early Sunday morning to watch games in London when it's not even our team playing. Like, that is how, like, on our knees we are for the NFL. They took over Christmas. They stole that from the NBA. They stole it from Jesus Christ. Move over, Santa. Roger Goodell is the new Santa. Okay, that's going to do it for us. Hope you enjoyed my TED Talk. But honestly, thank you guys for watching. Really, really appreciate it. To everyone that sent super chats in for all the kind words and the wishes and all that good stuff. Really, really appreciate it. Love you all so much. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, and I'll see you all later. Jeremy Stallman with a $6 super chat. They were putting the dirt on top of the grave, but the coffin broke through. Saved by the bell. $6 super chat from Jeremy Stallman. Appreciate you, Jeremy. 200 on the dot. You know, that's where the expression saved by the bell comes from. People back in the olden days would sometimes be buried prematurely alive.
I did read that.
And they'd have a bell in the casket, and they'd ring it. And then there would be a grave guy who would have to undig you.
Yep.
Saved by the bell. Jeremy, thank you so much for the super chat, for all of your super chats today. Big salute to you, my man. I'll be reaching out to you in a little bit, so check your phone. And Jeremy, you're awesome. Go Brownies! By the way, in the interview we did earlier, the guy we were interviewing, maybe he's watching this right now, is from the Cleveland area, so he grew up a Browns fan. And Mitch was like, give me your best bark. I gave him a pretty good grade on his bark. It was a pretty good dog pound bark. Jeremy Stallman with a $5 super chat. Let's go, Jeremy. Jeremy keeps sending them. We're not going anywhere. Show goes on. Browns and Steelers are playing Monday night in October. Yeah, I don't want to see the Browns play a primetime matchup Monday night, Sunday night, Thursday night until week 5. Like, I want week 2 to be a small, quiet, 1 p.m. game in Jacksonville. No one's paying attention to the Browns. Because Deshaun Watson historically has gotten off to slow starts in his career. Houston to Cleveland. And if you pump him full of primetime games early in the season, we may get results like last year in Pittsburgh. So let's put it off, like Jeremy said, to October. It'd be much more advantageous for Cleveland. Jeremy, thank you so much for your super chat yet again. Jeremy Stallman, ladies and gentlemen, the undoubted super chat king of the Cleveland Browns report. No doubt about it. I like to think back to the original super chat king was a guy named Brown Tiger, and maybe Cool Guy remembers him. If Ty Man was still here, it looked like he left a little while ago. I bet Tim Green also remembers remembers Brown Tiger. And Brown Tiger just disappeared last September. Every once in a while I get worried about him. I don't know where he went. Okay. A round of applause, as Jessica puts it, for Jeremy Stallman. All right, We'll let you guys get on with the rest of your day. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Jeremy, you're the man. Go Brownies, and I'll see you all throughout the week.